Hello, my name is Tom, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make homemade caramel rolls from scratch. No frozen bread dough. Pretty easy to make. The only thing is they take a little time. You got to stop and start a little bit. So as we do that, I'll stop the video and I'll start up again at the next step. But anyhow, first thing you want to do is you want to take your yeast, get that going. The recipe calls for 2 packages, but I've got this big thing here, so I gotta use a little different thing here. So I gotta put in 4.5 teaspoons of the yeast. There you go. And then 1 tablespoon of sugar to that. And I have my recipe out in front of me. I made these a bunch of times, but I still look so I don't make sure I don't forget a step. And then you gotta mix that with a 1/2 cup of warm water. You don't want it too hot, but it has to be warm enough to get the yeast going. I don't measure it with a temperature gauge or anything. I just kind of feel it and make sure it's warm and not hot. Put that in there and just mix that up a little bit here. Get it going, and then we'll set that off to the side. This is the first thing you want to do so you can get the yeast started while you go to your next step. And then next thing you want to do is you got 2.5 cups of water. I don't like to use a lot of measuring things, so I just reuse. I don't like to do the dishes too much, so anyhow, you put in 2.5 cups of that with a cup of sugar. So we got all the neighbors coming over for the 4th of July. It's been kind of tradition here. 4th of July, we have caramel rolls at our place before we have a little boat parade out here. And then it calls for 3/4 of a tablespoon of salt. I don't have a 3/4 of a tablespoon measuring thing, so I just try to get 3/4 of a tablespoon. There you go. And then actually you put that, you get that to boil. And then you turn that down and you simmer that for 10 minutes, and then we'll go on from there. See you in a little bit. All right, here we are back again. Our water sugar mixture has been simmering now for 10 minutes. So we'll throw that in a pan or a mixing bowl, and then you add a 1/2 cup of butter to that. And then I usually just, mix that up a little bit, get the butter to melt, and then you just set that aside, and I actually will put it in the refrigerator, and you gotta let that cool. As you can see, the yeast mixture is already working pretty good, so I'll just mix this up a little bit, get that butter to melt, and then I'll stick that in the fridge, and then we gotta wait again. So it's a lot of waiting and starting, but in the end product, it's worth it. All right, here we are back again. Now for this step, we actually might be around for a little while. This water butter mixture has cooled, and so now we'll add 2 broken eggs, beaten eggs, to that. Whoops! Just beat those up a little bit. Mix that in there. And then we mix in just 3 cups of flour to get started. And the reason you gotta let this mixture cool, you don't want to kill the yeast that you've got going there. So I just kind of roughly measure that, because in the end, the amount of flour you put in depends on how the consistency of the dough is working. So, because we'll add more flour after that. So all right, so we got 3 cups there. We'll just mix that up a little bit. I know you can make these with frozen bread dough, and it's probably a lot easier, but you can definitely tell the difference. The caramel mixture that we will put on the top of them, you can use that with frozen bread, but I actually have never I've never made anything with frozen bread, so always use the homemade recipe. So just mix that up a little bit, and then we'll add, and you can see the yeast again has been going. Then we'll add in the yeast mixture. Try to get as much as I can out of there. Mix that up a little more. I usually make a mess, so keep the paper towels around. Alright, and then we'll add, after this mixes a little bit, we will add to a total of around 7 cups of flour. It does vary a little bit, I'm not even sure why. It just, so we'll just, I usually will add a couple cups at the beginning after it's mixed a little bit. And then after that, like a cup or even a half a cup at a time. You just want it, you don't want it too floury, just enough so you can work it so it's not too sticky. And you can do this by hand without the mixer. I've done that before. But this is a little bit of a slower process as well, making sure you get everything mixed up good. I suppose I'm not supposed to be doing that. As long as I don't get my finger in there, I think I'm okay. So it needs to mix good, and I can see it's going to need more. It does take, like I say, it's a total of about 7 cups of flour. So, well actually maybe I'll shut this off for a little bit again, and then I'll come back to you when it's, I'll show you the consistency. Alright, so I've had the dough mixing for maybe 5 minutes, adding enough flour to get it, just so it's, I just wanted enough so, and then actually if you're going to work with it, you might want to have a little flour on your hands so it doesn't stick. But just kind of enough that you can play with it, or not play with it, but get it ready, get it out of there before, you know, it's not sticky, but I can do that. So now what we'll do is we'll spray a pan with some oil here, and then we'll take that. I like to get as much out of this dough as I can, so I can get an extra roll or so. Get that in there. Just make sure it's all oil throughout over it, and then we need to let that rise. And then we'll punch it down after it rises a little bit. What I normally would do is I'll stick it in the oven, I'll turn the oven to like 170 degrees and then shut it off. That way it'll raise a little higher without cooking. And yeah, I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so I've been having the dough rise in the oven here for about a half an hour or so. And it's doubled in size roughly, so I'll just punch it down. Move around a little bit, punch it down, and then actually, we got to do that again. Like I say, it's a little time consuming, but in the long run, it's worth it. Like I said earlier, you know, I like to turn the oven on to low temperature and then shut it off. Make sure you shut it off. I have left it on before and kind of ruined the batch of rolls. But actually, when it's rising for the second time, is when I usually will start the caramel mixture. I've already melted a stick and a half of butter. Into that, I will add a cup and a half of brown sugar. I don't make sure I measure things just perfectly. It all turns out good. Alright, got a cup and a half of that. Half a cup of white syrup. To that, like I say, I've got the butter in there already melted. And then I'll add a cup of heavy whipping cream to that. So really, on these rolls, there's only a half a dozen ingredients in the whole thing. So they're really pretty easy to make, but they just take time. Now it's raining out today, so that's one reason I decided to make rolls today. We're having the neighbors over in a couple days, so I was gonna freeze these. But usually, you can do laundry or something, help out the wife or the husband. There you go. So then on this, we'll just get that going on the oven at a low temperature. And then mix that up a little bit. And forgot, I do forget sometimes, and then just mix in a little bit of cinnamon. I don't measure that, just a little bit of cinnamon into there. Mix that around. And then once that starts to boil, you just cook it at a low temperature, and it takes a little while. But once it starts to boiling, then you take it off, and then we'll check in again in a little bit. All right, back again. So the caramel mixture has just started to boil, and it takes, about 10 minutes at a low temperature to get that to boil. And then you want to take that off, and then make sure you spray your pans. We'll be making 24 rolls with this batch. And one thing I found out by trial and error, I usually like to use the lighter colored metal pans. If you use a darker one, you got to keep a little closer eye on them. I just actually made some this morning, and they got a little bit crispy. They get done a little quicker, and a glass pan is the same way. That I was prepared for. So I watched those closer. I'd only use the dark pan one other time, because this will be my 6th dozen today, because we've got a few neighbors coming over. And then it's always nice, they freeze so good. So I like to keep some in the freezer. If the grandkids come over for breakfast, they like to have that for breakfast. Or this was kind of my go-to birthday treat when I was working. I worked for the post office for 41 years, and for my birthday I'd usually bring in these. The dough isn't quite ready to be for the second raise yet, so I'll be back in a little bit. Back again. Well, the rolls have been, the dough has been rising a little bit. I think they're about ready to go. They double in size again. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. You should cover that when you got those rising. So I'll punch it down again, and then we'll be ready to get things going here. You want to put a little bit of, I just use my countertop. Make sure you clean it off good. Sprinkle a little flour on there so the dough doesn't stick to the countertop. And there you go. That's the way that looks. And then, since we'll be making 2 dozen here, I just kind of estimate on where the half is and cut that in half, and then put the other one back in there, and then kind of, move it around a little bit, get it ready to go, and then you just roll it out. Hopefully this will work. Every time I make these, or not every time, but sometimes they turn out really good. Sometimes they turn out, well, they always taste good. Sometimes they don't rise quite as well as other times. But just get those out a little bit. And like I said, these aren't from a store. They're not going to all look perfect. But I guarantee you they're going to taste good. There you go. So, there you are. Then we just put on a little butter throughout it. I don't measure it or anything like that. I just kind of get some all over. So it's all covered there. Alrighty, then I sprinkle on a little bit of sugar. While you guys are gone, I got thinking about, my mom used to make caramel rolls, even though this isn't her recipe. And sometimes she would add raisins to it. She had a lunch, we had a bowling alley when I was growing up, and she would get up 4 o'clock in the morning and make homemade pies and rolls, and maybe that's where I got, I don't know if I want to say a love, but I don't mind baking and cooking. And in school we took bachelor survival class in foods class. Classmate of mine, Bruce Erickson, we took foods 1, 2. There wasn't a 3, but they let us take it a 3rd time. So we had foods 1, 2, and 3. And then sprinkle on a little cinnamon. Just kind of cover it over. And then we start rolling it up slowly. So that's where you want to get the flour, and it does stick a little bit. I don't want to put too much flour on there. I think that makes the dough a little harder. Just roll it up like that all the way. I did, when I was thinking about my mom, she used to put raisins in there. And I know some people will put pecans in their sauce. And so actually I did that. I put some pecans down in there. Tell you the truth, this is the first time I've done that. But I believe that's how you do it. But just roll this up nice and tight. And then when you get to the end, you just kind of pinch the ends together, make sure everything stays in there. When I first started making these rolls, I would get out a tape measure and measure so each one was roughly the same. Now I just use my knife that I'm going to cut it with, and looks like it's about even sides there. So, and then I just half each one roughly, and then make 2 more cuts on each one. So there's 3 pieces, so this will make a dozen. Like I say, yeah, I used to measure. My wife thought it was goofy, get the tape measure out. But when I didn't know what I was doing, not that I know what I'm doing now, but so there you go. Then I don't know if it makes any difference. I usually put the small ones in the corner, and I'm sure it doesn't matter. Just fill them in. And then what we do, actually now, sometimes, most of the time when I would make these, I would do this in the evening, and then I'd stick these in the refrigerator, let them sit in the refrigerator overnight, cover them, and then take them out in the morning, let them rise one more time, and then bake them. But since I got time right now, I'm going to cover those and then stick them back in the oven and let those rise right now, and then I'll bake them right away now. And we'll do the same thing with the other ones, with the other half, and I'll be back. Back again. All right, so they've been raising for, well, actually a little over a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. And like I say, I just have them on a low temperature in there, so they've raised up pretty good. Not quite as good as the ones I had this morning. Like I say, each one of my batches turns out a little bit different. So now I'll bake that at 350 for 25 to 30 minutes. Make sure you check them early instead of late. And then, so the next time will be the last time, and we'll see the finished product. Excuse me. All right, back for the last time. I think these rolls are done. One of the hard parts sometimes is telling, knowing exactly when they're done. And I usually will cut around the edge so they don't stick when you flip them over. I'll usually peek underneath a little bit and see. I did that a little bit ago, and they're looking pretty good. So what I'll do, a lot of times I'll flip them over into another cake pan or to a lid or something, but I'm thinking I'm going to freeze these. So I'm going to flip them over onto a piece of wax paper on a sheet there. And this is probably the trickiest part of the thing. You gotta make sure you get a hold of your pan good, and then you flip it over, and hopefully we're gonna see a good looking product here. There we go. That's the finished thing. They're looking awful good. Like I say, it takes a little bit of a time, but I guarantee you'll love the way they taste. These are, actually they look pretty good. So there you go, hope you enjoyed this. You have to excuse me again, that was the first time I've ever done anything like that. So there you go, thank you very much.